G'day guys, Mark here again. A bit of an update, a bit sooner than I was expecting to go into and talk about things, but with Western Australia and the gun side of things, and generally what's going on with the bill that's going through Parliament. Wasn't expecting to be talking to you this soon. It's not something I particularly want to do, but something I feel I should do for the community and for around the place. We had in Western Australia a week ago now, or the last Friday a week ago, we had a tragedy in Western Australia which has certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons, I suppose you'd say. Very coincidental, perfect timing for putting a bill through. Certainly getting a sentiment that it's all about guns is what they're putting forward, because we actually had a licensed firearm owner that shot two people, or allegedly shot two people, and then shot himself. So double murder, suicide incident. Terrible thing to happen, and then it's been a week of all sorts of stuff coming out. There was the first moment of, how's this even possible? How could it happen? Licensed firearm owner, it suits perfectly the bill side of things to help them push things through. So the conspiracy theorists and that sort of stuff would go, listen, and there's a valid thing. It happens exactly when it needs to happen. How's that possible? So yeah, that sort of, there is that side of it. All sorts of things were said beyond that point, which we heard in various forms through various social media and emails and bits and pieces, going from he was, I think one was shot himself in the chest twice and then shot himself in the head, which there's no evidence of whatsoever, that the police should have already taken his guns away from him, and I don't know anything about that side of things. There's that sort of stuff happening. He was an ex-police officer, there's no evidence of that. All sorts of stuff being said. For the people who you sort of want to hear from, there's radio silence because they just don't know what's going on. And then we've had the media and the media's opinions to things. So it started, I think, with the police minister saying that he was going to turn it into a domestic violence thing, even though the women who he was not related to, they were friends of his estranged wife at that stage, who was separate from his wife. Then it turned into how it was the police had done the wrong thing, and there was a bit of pushback from the media to the police saying that they hadn't done the right thing. And then the back half of the week turned into how it was all about our local rag, our local propaganda machine, the West Australian, putting forward that the suburbs are awash with guns. There's so many guns, and really, I think more as a smokescreen to cover what the police had done. And I say smokescreen because really it's how it comes across. And yes, there is, the police department pay a journalist as on police income, which is part of the West Australian. So there is some real messy ties on that sort of stuff, and there's a lot of propaganda to it. The bigger side of what actually happened, apart from how bad it was, and I'll get into what happened to the bill, but and I don't think it affected too much there actually, the reality of what's just come to light is that this man had a cricket ball sized cyst in his head pushing on his brain. He was changing his behaviour. He was definitely suffering from physical trauma to the brain, causing, or pressure on the brain, causing him to change. He was not himself anymore. He had been separate from, and this has been ongoing. The hospital knew about this, that's what I gather at least. There was even a recommendation that his driver's license be suspended at the moment because he wasn't going to be in a stable form. All sorts of things could have happened. So there is, without question, a huge breakdown in our system. All these things, if this was known properly, then there would have been other things for his own personal protection, let alone to what actually happened to other people in this situation. A huge breakdown. West Australia's systems, as we know, West Australians, they don't talk to each other. They very much like to control us as civilians, and as the public control us, but in actual fact, our unelected government and our elected government, the whole lot working together, no, they don't do it. For all the computer power they got, for all the obvious things you would think happening, there's a huge failure there, and that's our real failure. They are turning it into about guns because a gun was used. Obviously it could have been a kitchen knife, it could have been a fist, it could have been fuel, it could have driven a truck through the city street. You know, there's all sorts of things that have happened when someone is literally going crazy because there's stuff going on inside their head. So once again, as per usual in these things, when you get enough of the information, it starts to make sense again. Tragedy, without any question. People lost their lives. Tragedy to him, all the evil that he'll get painted as. When you lose control of your brain, what is going to happen? You're no longer yourself. So, tragedies all over on that sort of side of things. But and that's all I want to say there. That's what I know at this stage. Maybe that'll start to come out. Maybe that'll get covered up because it's very convenient on a couple of things that are actually happening. One, in Western Australia, our government and our police force this is a really helpful thing to try and take guns off the street. As I said, the West Australian paper and the media are focusing on all the guns in our streets, which is an absurd thing to say. There is at most 90,000 firearms owners or licensed firearms owners in Western Australia. You know, I've forgotten the numbers of the 4 million people I think it is in the state neck of the woods. We have it's a very, very small percentage. So it's a ludicrous thing to say, but it suits their argument. Create more fear to serve the purpose of removing guns, but also fear is the best way to sell papers, and it's the best way to control people. Love, compassion, get together, be better people, all that sort of stuff. That doesn't sell papers, and it doesn't make you easier to control. Control you make you frightened and make you need their support and need them to make you safe, and that's how you control the sheep, which is what they're up to. So nasty sort of situation, but that is, listen, that's sort of the smell of things, that's where things are going. As for the bill and what actually happened on that side of things, which is the new regulations, new laws that the Minister, Papalia, wants to bring into our state with our police force, want to bring into our state and put to it. There was, as everyone knows, an e-petition, which was basically to try and get that bill from taking the next step and going to the upper house of Parliament to actually stop at this stage and be voted to go back to a full review and actually have a more honest review rather than just being in-house, being reviewed by everyone. That was unlikely to happen. There was the maths was possible, but one of the situations we have in Western Australia in our Labor Party over here is every sitting member, and they have the vast majority, but every sitting member has to vote the way of the hierarchy. It's against their rules to vote with your conscience, to vote for your constituents, vote for anything other than the top dog. So not a democratic way to do anything whatsoever, but it is their rules. So it was unlikely not to go through. But that doesn't mean the petition at 32,000 signatures, which is a record, it's a West Australian record for a petition to have that amount of noise. And yes, I know 90,000 licensed firearm owners wasn't there. Why wasn't there at least 90,000 signatures? Yeah, listen, all sorts of reasons to go with that. I've been through that before, but still it was a record. It was very good. And it doesn't mean that it didn't create waves. There are other parties, some parts of the Liberal Party, the National Party, the minor parties, that sort of stuff, the One Nation, all that type of thing, that are not only voting against it, but also saying that if they get in where they have any control and these laws go through, that they are making rules in their parties that they are definitely going to try and get them kicked out afterwards. They're going to be, if they have control, then they'll roll them back, so those rules won't exist anymore. Lots of things going on there. My comment would be, it should be not just 30,000, it should have been 1 million. This is what's happening to West Australian firearm owners in the way of these laws coming in the way they're coming in, written by the police. So the enforcers writing the rules, what's the next thing that they're going to take? We know what's happening in the West Australian Labor Party in all forms. There was a protest yesterday from the farmers where the West Australian Labor Party, just the West Australian guys, have decided to ban live export. So that's the sheep trade. They've decided to make it zero by 2028. So it's going to kill some farmers, or it's going to, probably could kill them. It's going to run some farmers out of business. It's going to change the landscape of West Australia, the rural side of West Australia, forever with what they're trying to do. This is not something that was consulted, not something that's been through proper due diligence, and that sort of stuff. This is just, once again, the West Australian Labor Party doing what suits them in their suburbs, in their little areas where the people, I don't know, all eat grass. I don't know what they do, but certainly they are definitely anti the majority of West Australian in the way of by the land side of things, but suiting where there is, and I suppose that's the other thing that's going on. They've changed electoral boundaries. They keep on moving. They've moved them again. All about structuring things around to where the folks that they are living alongside and the folks that they are changing the rules for have the most control. So it's a pretty, like I said, undemocratic system. We're in a fair bit of trouble on that side of things, but I suppose where I'd go to that is they are affecting so much of West Australia and West Australians. There's a lot more people on our side. And this is not just about the gun side of things, is just a very good example of what they're doing. Now we've got the live the sheep live export side of things, another good example. We've got what's going on with the fisheries, what's going on with the beaches, what's going on with the national parks, what's going on with the four-wheel drives, what's going on with our road traffic side of things. We've got Weir Estate, which has lots of sneaky cameras around the place to fine you, to where they're driving people down to where people now are starting to honestly travel around 10 kilometres below the speed limit. Unless, of course, they're in a passing lane where they all go up to the speed limit so no one can pass them. Anyway, where people are frightened. People are simply frightened of breaking the law because we have this Gestapo mentality of our government to control the people. I'll stop harping on about that one there. I'm saying there's a lot of people. We start to communicate more. We should be showing up at other people's interests or other interest rallies. So the farmers are protesting, then the shooters, the four-wheel drivers, that sort of stuff, we should be part of that because we are part of the same state. We've got the same problem. It's just we're in a different hat over there and we're in a different hat over here. And for us, we are probably the firearms owners, when I say us, have the most stigma attached to us. You know, we've been made the bad guys for a long time. That's all over the world, obviously. But it's probably no more so anywhere in the world than it is in Western Australia, where it really is seen as, where a lot of West Australians don't even understand there's guns until the likes of the paper is saying, oh, well, your neighbours have got them and they're all scary, they're bad things, so we'll create this division thing. But what I'm trying to say with that is, yes, that's something that we really feel as firearms owners, but the best way to fix that is to be involved with everyone else and then explain the situation. Not only you potentially let people know the nice way of the fact that we are firearms owners and we enjoy other people coming and enjoying our sport as well, but we also, by going to their side of things, encourage them to support our side of things, viewing the fact that the problem isn't what the paper says it is, the problem is what our government is up to. Anyway, I'll stop on that one there. The other thing that's very important in this same situation is the domestic abuse side of things, or what actually I'm staring at is this bad males is what our government, even our Prime Minister, is saying this sort of thing. Really driving the men who are the protectors, the providers, have been for, and why this world is where it is because of us, the men that have done that have carried it on our back, or protected, or gone to war, or all the bits and pieces that men have done. And now our society seems to be turning on us. And like I said, even the Prime Minister says such negative things. A couple of things in that little bracket. It may seem that way. You look at the adverts on TV where not only are they racist in the fashion of they really think colour, you've got to have one of every colour in most of ads. You've got to have gay or trans or whatever it is represented all the time. And if you're going to have a white male, then largely you're going to have him be the idiot or be the bad guy. That comes from our advertising side of things. That comes in our movie side of things. Do understand that is driven from our institutions. I won't harp on that one there. But actually out in our society, in our country towns, in our cities, in all over the place, it still is not actually that way. It's being sold to you and you may feel like that, but it isn't actually that way. There might be incidences of it for sure, but it's not the general seed of things. So don't take it too much to heart. We should fix it, but don't take it too much to heart. The other side of it is the domestic violence thing, which is getting very much pushed at the moment. And the big statistic that's been thrown around and been used by the politicians is the one woman dies every 6 days to the hands of some form of domestic violence. And it's a true statistic, and it's a terrible statistic. It's a real tragedy that happens. But I would have to say it is a statistic, and it is put that way with very little other information because the other information doesn't suit. The other information tells you that in actual fact, if you go to the law courts, if you go to the emergency rooms, you go that sort of stuff, you'll find that it's 50-50 at best. It's men and women, and it's 50-50. Both ways happen. Yes, men get bashed by women. Yes, women get bashed by men, and there's all the other forms of domestic abuse. It is very even. It is much more about stress and about the breakdown, the division created by our media, by our politicians, by the police side of things. There's a real bias, which is actually more about division. It comes across as it's the poor women. And as for a statistic that shows the stress side of things, it is a far bigger statistic to tell you that over 3,000 Australians die every year from suicide. Over 3,000. And in that over 3,000, which is actually approximately 8 per day die from suicide. In that 8 per day, 6 are men. Literally 3 times as many men, and that's veterans, and that's homeless, and that's domestic abuse, and that's road traffic, and that's drugs, and that's all those things that are involved in this sort of situation. I shouldn't say road traffic, that's another thing, that's deaths, and I'm not talking just deaths, I'm talking suicides. But over 3 times, or there is 3 times as many men die from that. So that's a big number, 6 men per day. So 36 times their statistics is that thing. That's a really heavy thing to understand. And if you look at a society that is saying men are bad, and the Prime Minister is saying men are bad, and everyone's saying men are bad, it's not hard to fathom what's going on here. So a tragedy, I don't really like talking statistics and that sort of stuff. There's a lot more you can bring up. It's a lot bigger conversation. What I would say is the big deal is when you drive for division, which is what they're doing, which is what our woke world is doing, which is what our politicians are doing. It is for a specific reason, divide and conquer, but in every level, whether it's your race, whether it's your gender, whether it's your status and whatever you are in your class, whether it's all the different reasons, but it also turns into turning children against their parents. It turns into getting the parents against each other, men hating women, no one wants to get on, that sort of stuff. You keep people frightened, you keep people with fear and with control, and not working together means they are a lot easier to control. So you can easily mash the sheep if you've got them frightened of the wolves. They'll easily go to where you tell them because they're frightened. This is also driven out of corporate entities, which is about sales. So the media, they can't sell papers with love and compassion. They'll sell it with fear and tragedy and tragic and control side of things. And what's going on the bad side of things is that sells papers. That's what I do. And I talk papers, but of course that's media in general. So I suppose there's a lot more I could harp on about. What I really would come back to is we need more support on our gun bill side of things. It's only a little tiny drop in the ocean compared to what's actually going on in our world, but it's still our ocean, and it is still a big problem for us. There's a lot of men that are feeling very much deflated, very much beaten down, and I hear stories of guys saying, I've heard a few too many times now, I don't know, I feel like a criminal. I don't want to do this. I'm just looking at getting rid of all my guns because I don't want to feel like a criminal anymore. I want to give up. And I would say if you hear that, then encourage them not to be that. As for the laws that are coming forward, they're coming forward. There's, in one form or other, they're looking at changing things, but they aren't necessarily what you've written. They're already making amendments, they're already changing things. I honestly don't believe that some of the things they're talking about are going to come through. The likes of limiting the numbers, it's going to be very problematic in a lot of situations to try and get that in. But of course, if they can frighten people or intimidate people into giving up their guns by themselves, then they don't have to, because it won by the bluff that they were going to do it. So be a little stronger, be a little more controlled about it, and do understand that they can't instantly turn you into a criminal, not as an isolated incident anyway. So the more people that just hold their ground, the bigger a problem that comes from there also. I feel constitutional law is going to step back into place, and what I actually feel is going to happen is when they actually get to look at this stuff properly, they're going to say that's a big problem. It might be easy to bring in a law that says you can't get more than 5 guns to your license, but to take them off when people have $100,000, $200,000 worth of firearms, and to steal them from them, there's a big problem from there, especially if there's enough of them. So hold your ground a little bit on that sort of score. As for, I understand it is a bluff game that's happening here. As for the people who are feeling low and feeling like criminals and that sort of stuff, we need to support each other more. Support unity, support everyone. There's the men that need support, but there's also the women that need support. There's the look after the people who look after you and look after yours, and be a little more community spirited about the whole thing. Do understand that a lot of the pressures that we're feeling are by design, probably not to the knowledge of the people. They think that they're into the diversity and inclusion or whatever it is that they're up to, driven from our institutions, which is actually quite the opposite of what it sounds. On our side of things, conservative values, be them religious, be them whatever they are, supporting each other and being active in your community and whatever your community is, but looking after each other. So yeah, that's whether that's the men or that's the women, the good women, the people who are not encouraging division. And I suppose I shouldn't single out anyone. You know, they still need support. Be polite, be friendly, and do what we can for each other. Do understand that our governments and our institutions, and in some parts of the people who control us, there is some malice involved in trying to control us, is what it turns out to be. But it isn't generally done in a deliberate level to understand what they're doing. They're trying to do the right thing, I suppose, in some senses, but it is driven in a very poor fashion. So without getting complicated, look after each other, and let's see what we can do as a community to try and get things back on track. So anyway, I think you get where I'm going with that side of things. For the guys who are feeling really low or feeling like criminals and all that sort of stuff, no, you're not. You're one of the good guys. Don't feel that way. Like I said, support each other in every sense, and that's about what I can say for today. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. Leave any comments and stuff below as always. And listen, thanks for checking in. We'll catch you next time.